in such huge modeling. But this is something interesting and cool and more global public health, and frankly, it's work in process, and I'm painfully aware of the Achilles heels that it has, and so I'm hoping that I can solicit not only your interest, but also your comments and guidance as to how, if we think, and if and how we can fix it. So with that, let me just get started. So what I'd like to do today is introduce you to this particular topic that you may not even be aware of, which is sanitation-related sexual violence against women. It is an issue of growing public concern globally, and I hope to convince you of that. To propose a model-based approach to thinking about what could be done about it, trying when possible to assemble and organize the very limited data that exists, to understand and manage the uncertainties, of which there are many, to try to begin to inform a policy response, and to think about what this tells us about what we don't know and what further investigation might do. And as I said, I really am interested in soliciting your questions, your comments, potentially your collaboration. I only have 2 more slides anyway, so if you want to ask questions, speak slowly, drag it out, and I have no need to get to the end of this talk if the discussion gets interesting. Isn't that right, Bob? We didn't get to the end of his talk, and it was a lot of fun. Okay, and before I even get started, I need to acknowledge that we have gotten a tremendous amount of help, notably from people who collect statistics in South Africa. Those first 2 people. The Social Justice Coalition in South Africa is an advocacy group specifically dedicated to the question of reducing sanitation-related violence in South Africa. And I'll tell you more about Stacey when we get to that point, but he's an amazing guy too. I think it's probably useful also to mention that my collaborators, Ed Kaplan from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, is a professor at the School of Management and Engineering and Public Health, and I think even medicine. Greg Gonsalves is at the Yale Law School. So this really is a lovely interdisciplinary collaboration that brings together people from different schools at Yale, and I'm quite proud of the fact that we were able to find common ground and get something done in this particular area. And if you want to bring somebody who's spectacular, and bring in Kaplan, he's amazing, and he's in Saskatoon. Okay, background. The World Health Organization estimates that 35% of women worldwide have experienced sexual or physical violence. The highest reported rates of sexual assault against women are in industrialized countries and in Africa, and they are worse in urban environments, which often exacerbate the risks that lead to sexual violence. I don't expect you to be able to read this slide, only to say that if you look at the literature on what can be done to reduce sexual violence, you usually get N-pronged approaches, 4-pronged, 3-pronged, 10-pronged approaches. It's a big issue, and a lot of comprehensive responses addressing multiple sources of risk have been accounted for. But one neglected driver that seems to be getting a little more attention these days is this idea of inadequate access to sanitation. The development and human rights organizations, Amnesty International most notably, have been pointing increasingly to inadequate toilet access as a key driver of women's risk for physical assault. And what I'm about to show you are a whole bunch of anecdotal suggestions that this probably is a problem. But I need to try to inoculate, especially the host of epidemiologists here in this room. I am painfully aware of the fact that what I'm about to present to you in the next 3 or 4 slides does not constitute data in any sense. And my concern, something I'd like to solicit from you, is how might we collect this data? I'm humbled by the logistical and temporal and financial obstacles that lie between us and actually being able to establish this problem. So what I'm going to show you now is the anecdotal evidence, but if we can have a discussion about how we go a little further and verify this problem, I'd be very happy to hear about it. Here's from the Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council. An estimate on their part that 1 in 3 women lack a safe place to go to the toilet. It is estimated that 500 million women regularly go to the toilet in the open, and that if you aggregate over the entire world, it means that almost 100 billion person hours each year are spent just looking for a safe place to go to the bathroom. 500 million people, open defecation is a reality today. And, you know, I mean, it's so far removed from our reality, and yet those are the statistics. Again, statistics in air quotes. From the Social Justice Coalition, we're using the toilet utility. I'll let you just read these quotes from their testimony to this particular commission that actually brought to light some of these problems. The most dangerous thing you can do is try to relieve yourself. Okay. From Amnesty International, which produced a lovely report on this problem as it pertains to the slums of Nairobi, Kenya. And also, by the way, I mean, this is happening wherever large groups of people come together in informal settings. So lots of informal settlements like the former townships in South Africa, but we're also talking about refugee camps, the real problem. So just to give you a sense, and by the way, these are internally self-contradictory, which will come back to bite us when we try to actually build this model. I know you can't do this, particularly after dark. The lack of toilets and bathrooms near their homes puts women at great risk of violence. Most don't dare leave their homes because of the danger lurking on the way. Many women suffering rape and other forms of violence as a result of attempting to walk to the toilet or latrine some distance from their homes. You get the idea. Okay. Other observations. Women do more walking in these places. The men often go somewhere else to work during the week. The women are the ones tending to the household duties. Women just do more walking in these urban settlements when compared to their male counterparts. Second, there's something, transit to other facilities may be associated with active violence. These things usually happen with other people present, and that there is something unique about trips to the toilet. Okay, they tend to be less amenable to scheduling. They tend to be subject to biological imperatives. They happen at all times of the day. They are by their very nature solitary and private, and you get the idea. I realize, as I said, none of that constitutes data. So is inadequate access to sanitation a driver of sexual violence against women? I don't know, but it's worrying enough to me, and from speaking with people and reading the Amnesty report, it seems to warrant further investigation. Moreover, as I think I indicated a moment ago, it's likely to get worse because there is a general urban shift in Africa. It's estimated by 2050 that 40% of South Africans will live in urban settings, and there's no coherent policy to manage that urban shift, that demographic transition. In fact, the evidence, I think, is overwhelming that the state and local governments are taking active steps to avoid having to do anything about this, because if they provide the services, it will only encourage more people to move to those urban settings. Why do I say that? Well, it was an election issue in South Africa, the national elections last year. This is the bulletin board poster said 41 million people now have access to sanitation. This was an ad from the African National Congress. Look at what a good job we're doing. And then suddenly the papers were full of sort of attacks on that number, saying nonsense, you're not doing nearly enough. Just last week, in fact, the city of Cape Town's draft budget was released for 2015-2016. This is amazing, right? 21% of Cape Town households are in informal settlements, and yet only 14% of the city's 1.2 billion rand budget for water and sanitation is being allocated to those settlements. That would suggest that they are deliberately under, to me anyway, that they are deliberately under-resourcing this with the hope that people will be discouraged from moving in and potentially encouraged to move out. So, we wanted to start the conversation, and I really need to emphasize that what I'm going to show you, we're trying. How might improved access to sanitation facilities reduce sexual assault? What might it cost? And what does this tell us as we do this analysis about better understanding and managing this? Does anyone want to say anything before I move on to what we actually did? It's the audience participation part. Yeah?
So, it strikes me that, this might actually be a very good qualitative research. Because it's, something perhaps hard to get data on. Perhaps people aren't very open to answering questionnaires about other research methods besides just epidemiological surveys might be very appropriate.
Couldn't agree more. You want to say something about those college in the back?
Well, I was thinking a few things, because I'm not sure what records they have, how they're keeping records in South Africa about sexual assault, et cetera.
I'll show you.
If you were, oh, you will.
I have some.
If you were able to go back, and I don't know how specific you're able to
Please.
identify people,
Yeah.
and then in turn,
Yeah, actually go back to the individual.
and then ask them, I don't know if that's possible, or to what degree they feel in terms of qualitative based, the risk of and as they're treated.
I'd love to see that work done. I'm a modeler, so I ask myself, is there anything I can do from a modeling perspective? But I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's when Johannesburg is my hometown.
Oh.
Looking at your prior slides, something that may make this go to hoe is that structurally, for 60 years under apartheid, the way you look in economic terms, and economic terms you look prosperous, take lots off the books to make them non-being, right? So you only count a fraction of the population when you're adding up assets. The other people are actually providing economic good, generating wealth and so forth. But they're all off the books and on people. And it seems to me, I mean, it's 20 years now. Apartheid's gone. There have to be a lot of bureaucrats and a lot of things. What we're counting. Still
Informal.
that's it's the Orwellian thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just seems like South Africa's an interesting place to try to value human life.
You're going to love this. You're going to love what we tried to do. So I don't disagree with anything you said. I'd love to see all that research get done. Let me show you what a modeler thought. He might be able to contribute to this. So we use the model-based approach. It's got strengths and weaknesses. Let me just stipulate, I think we did a pretty good job of identifying the problem. I think I'm going to present to you a model that you'll be able to understand. I think we did a good job of sensitivity analysis, parameter uncertainty management thing that we're all good at, to go to the SMDM meeting. And I think there's some nice qualitative insight. We made a lot of assumptions. We didn't try to explore model uncertainty at all. We built a model, okay? But I invite you to mess with it. And here's the biggest weakness, and here's where I'm really hoping you epidemiologists will speak up. I don't know how to empirically verify, calibrate, or anything else. Okay? With that having been said, I'm not trying to stop you from criticizing me for vulnerability to assumptions. I just wanted you to know I'm aware. Okay. And just in case you decide you want to leave the room before I'm done, let me give you a preview of what we found. Our model suggests that you should double the number of toilets in this particular settlement, Khayelitsha, and reduce both the number of assaults and the overall cost of society. But the question, like any good research, we ended up with more questions than answers. The question is sexual violence an opportunistic behavior, or is it more like an addiction? In other words, if you stamp it out in one place, it's merely going to pop up somewhere else, or you're actually stamping it out. What is the effect of clustering? We're not sure we really understand safety in numbers at all, and whether you should build toilets in one place or spread them around. And are sexual assaults simply a function of travel time? You'll see what I mean by that in a moment. Or might they also depend on the time of day, the number of people in line? These things will become more apparent to you as I show you the model. So that's our basic finding. If you're bored, please, this is a good time. Okay. Here's the model in overview terms. We developed a model that links the risk of a sexual assault to the number of available toilets by thinking about it in terms of the total time the woman spends walking to and from the toilet. So it's an exposure time model. The longer your exposure time, the higher your risk of assault. Okay? We then estimated a social cost function that takes into account two things: the economic burden of sexual assault and the cost of installing and maintaining public toilets. Think about that for a minute. The more toilets you build, the higher the cost of installing and maintenance, but the lower the social cost. So if you add up this cost curve and this cost curve, you're going to get this cost curve. right? And somewhere in the middle, there's going to be an optimal, i.e. top minimizing number of toilets. That's the basic framework. We will talk about that ad nauseum in 20 minutes. Okay, case study, Khayelitsha. Largest and fastest growing informal settlement, and that is an Orwellian euphemism for Reform Township on the outskirts of South Africa. High rates of sexual violence, inadequate sanitation have become the subject of extensive public debate. Social justice coalitions focus on it. And then the other thing that commended it as a place to use as our case study is that they have surprisingly good data on population size and density, the epidemiology of sexual assault such as it is, crime rate statistics, and believe it or not, the geography and logistics of toilet usage. So that's where we're going. Here's the basic framework, some really high level math here, okay? The total assault as a function of the number of toilets is going to be the product of total exposure time times the assault rate. So far, so good? My fingers haven't left my hand yet? All right, let's take those two pieces apart and really blow them into their component parts. Exposure time. The annual population exposure hours when there are N toilets is going to be given by this lovely formula. The average distance from a random location to the nearest toilet when there are N toilets. Okay, so the more toilets there are, the smaller this number is going to be. 2, because it's a round trip. Total number of women. The annual number of toilet visits per woman divided by average walking speed. You plug that in and you get total exposure time, right? Over? No? Yes? Okay, show you where I got each of those data. Yes, I have explored the literature on data use, and it's on toilet usage. And it appears that the average woman makes 6 daily round trips to the bathroom. You can see whether you're ahead of the curve or below the curve. In sensitivity analysis, we considered a range of 3 to 12, but that's where that particular data point came from. Walking speed, yes, people have gone out and figured out that the average human walks 5 kilometers per hour. Okay, we didn't have local data. I realize this may not be generalizable to Khayelitsha, but whoops. 5 kilometers per hour. Okay. Oh shoot, I didn't arrange these properly. Sorry, I was messing with the slides before and I messed up. Hang on. I killed a slide. Wait. I apologize. I was messing with this before. I did kill a slide. I killed a slide. All right, I'll have to tell you that I will simply have to tell I sincerely apologize, but I remember it. Population. The Statistics South Africa is actually an amazing organization. They do a very good job of estimating population, not just in the overall country, but they can actually slice and dice by these things called small area, SAL, small area, small census tracts, something like that. There are 583 census tracts in Khayelitsha. So we actually have pretty good data on who lives where within the informal setup and the number of people living there. Okay? That's what that's like. And then the next thing it said was that the data were delivered to us digitally in this fancy GIS, thing that I knew nothing about. Okay. So that's when I went to see Stacey Maples at the Yale Math Collection. And I hope you'll have a chance to come to Yale sometime. This is our flagship library, the Stern Library. He's up here on the 8th floor. And it's the most amazing place because it's like 2 different worlds up there. On the one hand, you've got this medieval looking, map, so like those old round scrolls, and you can go in and say, I'd like to see a map of, France in the 1500s, and this little monk will go to the shelf and blow the dust off it and lay it. And then on the other side is this state-of-the-art GIS consulting outreach group, and this elf, Stacy, has nothing better to do than to help you with your digital data. And he just says, oh, yeah, I can take that population data that you got from Statistics South Africa, and I can overlay it on top of the toilet audit that was conducted by the Social Justice Coalition, okay? It was a social audit of toilet supply locations, what fraction of them were actually functional, how often they were being serviced. Amazing, one toilet every 70 people. So we assigned toilets within each of those little census tracts, but Stacy was able to basically take the census data and slap the toilets on top of them so that we could begin using this thing that I learned about called the Manhattan metric. So the shortest distance between two lines is 2 points with a straight line, but not if I find myself on a grid, which is, again, Khayelitsha. I don't know if you know Khayelitsha, but apparently pretty laid out on a grid system, and that's your formula for figuring out total distance as a function of the number of toilets. It should make some sense to you. Pi's in there, which is kind of cool. The area, the number of toilets, and this one other thing that I need to tell you about, which is, are the toilets randomly peppered around, or are they clustered? And I know we should have been able to know this from the social audit, the community census tract. I can tell you how many toilets are already in tract, but I can't tell you how they're distributed within the tract. Are they randomly assigned within the tract, or are they clustered? And it's going to matter, and I don't know the answer to this, okay? The reason I just don't know, and it's going to matter, so that's the picture I'm telling you about. So we didn't know how that would work. I mean, we tried to get some information. I was actually going on safari with my wife, and I said, do you mind if we stop in Soweto for the day and just look at where toilets are? So we walked around taking pictures of toilets, and she's walking with me. And it was a lovely day. Anyway, 7 was a really good number. 7 seems to be like I don't know. We varied it from 3.5 to 14 in sensitivity analysis, but there is some clustering. And you can see this is going to matter, right? Because the more they're clustered, the longer the distance, the longer the exposure time. And as I'll show you in a minute, we did take that into account. What we did not take into account at all was whether there is in fact any safety in numbers, which are very long. You want to stop me, or are we doing okay? Mm. You want to tell the world what a flying toilet is?
Well, there's two kinds. There's the 23rd century one that's very desirable. It's titanium.
That's not what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about. It's pooping in a plastic bag. It's a good way not to.
Right.
And I mean, I'll save it for after, but one of the elements in the room that is communicable disease control, because there you don't have sexual assault, but there are communicable disease disasters.
Yes. So flying toilets are indeed, we heard about them all the time. And of course, the flying toilet reduces that number from 6 visits to 5 visits. So it matters. I don't know what to do about it yet, other than do sensitivity analysis on the number 6. But we were given to understand that they are, yeah. I hate having knowledgeable people in the room. The good thing is I'm usually surrounded by economists. Right? Okay, we could be very wrong about the effects of clustering. Okay, so I think I said this already. No assumed effect on direct costs, increases exposure time. We don't really know. So there's one with more than 7. Okay, I think I've given you the component parts of H. Do you have any questions about that, or should we move on to R?
What about you make about the equipment? I mean, so these, like looking at those given age,
Yeah.
like you assume that some of these and that things goes in with change non-toilet users, toilet users.
So, and please chime in if you know more. So the assumption in this model right now is that everyone has access to the publicly available. Walking around, I could even, in fact, I don't know if it's in the picture. Kind of interested in that. locked. They're not really publicly available. What happens is people start taking ownership of these things, and they'll buy a catalog. And it would be so easy to just unscrew the little thing, right? But they don't. And if you had a fight with your neighbor and you stop it, because it's not related to you, and so the answer to your question, I think, is some people really don't have it, and I don't know. I was assuming that everyone had access.
I mean, your preface talked about how many people didn't have access
Yeah.
at all.
Right. So I have, yeah. So I'm talking about a somewhat less dire location. You're right. You're right. I'm in a less dire location where there is an inadequate, but nevertheless non-zero prevalence of toilets. Okay. Anything else? All right, let's talk about the assault rate. So as I said before when I was talking about the weaknesses of the assault, we assume that sexual assault is a predatory behavior. In other words, it is not an addiction-driven behavior. It's not as if a predator says, I must assault a woman today, and I'm going to find her no matter what. It's more, if the opportunity arises, and there does seem to be some evidence we subsequently collected to suggest that is in fact a better model. It is characterized by a particular rate per hour of exposure time. Okay, that's our assumption, but it does imply it does have some consequences. It ignores the possibility that stamping out toilet-related assault will only increase assault in other locations. Okay? We're assuming that the stamp out is really stamping it out. Okay? It treats assault, as I said, as opportunistic. Okay, I think I said that one. And by the way, the other thing that we're thinking we really should change is that we're assuming that a woman is at risk while she's walking to and from, but not while she is actually at the toilet. We may need to fix that. I don't know enough about the mechanics and logistics of rape to know whether, in fact, there are. It's another thing to do, right? Yeah, talk to them. Okay, so here's what we did. Raw data on sexual assaults from 2003 to 2012, compiled by the South African Police Service Station within Khayelitsha. So we have those data. All right. I'm sorry? Oh, yes. So we did 3 adjustments to deal with the fact that there are only raw data. And just as you said, underreporting is the first. We're probably looking at the tip of an iceberg here. So there is some data, even from South Africa, suggesting that maybe only 15% of all assaults are actually reported. Further data saying, okay, what proportion of assaults are happening outdoors, because we certainly didn't want to think about the ones that were happening in homes, and certainly those are happening. So we assume 30% of assaults are occurring outdoors. Got a little bit to suggest that it really is happening. Yeah, so a small proportion happening at the toilets. We actually have that. Okay. And then finally, and this one we made up completely, that half of those reported outdoor assaults were attributable to toilet travel. Okay? So we certainly, we understand that those are problems. You can adjust these numbers in sensitivity analysis if you don't think we got the right numbers. But that's one part of the model we actually think we got right. Okay? So finally, we arrive at this magnificent total assaults are just K divided by the square root of n, where K is this accumulation of all those parameters that I showed you over the course of the last 15 minutes, okay? It's ugly, but it's just not that hard to compute. The intuition here is what I'm hoping I can focus on here, which is that the total assaults as a function of the number of toilets is going to go down as n goes up, but there's going to be diminishing marginal returns to additional investment in toilets, and the diminishing marginal returns are going to be a square root. Okay? All right. I have lots of time, a little time. Perfect. Okay. There's my assault rate. Remember when I did the analytical overview, I said, first I'm going to show you how the assault rate happens, and I'm going to tell you about the social cost function. So the social cost function is this. We said the total cost operating and toilet is going to be composed of two things. The operating cost, so that's just the cost of providing and maintaining the toilets times the number of toilets, and F, which is the per assault social cost, we'll get through in a minute, times the number of assaults. So there's my equation for total cost. And what I need to show you from this slide is how I got C, and then we can have a long discussion about where I got F. C was easy. Got this from the city of Cape Town, roughly $960 US per toilet per year. By the way, clustering is probably going to matter here too, right? Because you got to serve these things, and if they're in one place, it's probably cheaper. We said to the people in Cape Town, cheaper to cluster those. So I've got a per unit cost right now, but I would love to get more information about clustering, its effect not only on assaults, but its effect on the cost structure. But, you know, we looked at values ranging from, you know, we cut it in half and multiply it by 4 or something like that. All right. Okay, here's the more controversial one. So understand why this is fun, right? I'm trying to assign a societal cost to a sexual assault. All right. Okay. Certainly no application data on that. If you look in the United States, and probably in Canada too, we looked in the United States, and you can imagine that there's a lot of variation. It all depends on whether you use method of equivalent pay, or jury compensation, or unit cost. I don't even know exactly unit costing. But one way or another, the data varies very widely on what the social costs of sexual assault are. One widely cited paper, which seemed to, I believe it used a willingness to pay approach, okay, suggested that the costs in the United States are $53,000, composed, oh, I'm sorry, not 53, multiply that by 10 almost, 530,000, well, yeah, roughly $530,000. $41,000 in the tangible direct costs and $20,000 in the intangibles associated with pain, suffering, and risk of homicide. So we took that number, which comes to, what is that, about $250,000 US. Then we adjusted it downward by the ratio of the US GDP, so as to put it into sort of equivalent purchasing power dollars. And what we got was $53,000 US per sexual assault as the social cost of rape. And then in sensitivity analysis, we tried halving it, we tried doubling it. Do I feel really confident about this number? No. What do you think? You asked this question a minute ago. What do you want to say now?
Questions to follow up.
I have no idea. What I do know is that I'm using it in a transparent way. So if you have a better number, dial it up, dial it down. One thing I will show you though is that as we dial it down, you can dial it way down and you still want more oil. So let me show you that in a minute. But yeah. Anything else? Okay, I think I've shown you everything. So at this point, I can just say the total number, the total cost, when you have N toilets, is going to be CN, SAN, this little thing, right? And then if you want to, so this is a function, right? And look, this function is going up linearly in the number of toilets. This one is coming down in a curved way. So the total is taking that U-shaped form that we talked about a little. And how do you find the lowest point on a curve? You take the derivative, right? It's like I finally took a derivative. I've been in this business for 25 years. I took a derivative. I actually had to call an undergraduate and say, hey, take the derivative. Let's do it anymore. There it is. There's the derivative. All right. Let me show you what happens when we plug in the numbers. Current situation, as best as we understand it. 5,600 toilets in Khayelitsha. Number of sexual assaults per year, 635. Mean travel distance, 2 football fields. Well, 1 football field each way. Total installation and maintenance costs in US dollars, $6 million. Social costs of sexual assault, 34. Total cost, $40 million. Okay. And by the way, here's the cost minimizing scenario. Double the number of toilets. Reduce the number of sexual assaults from 635 to 446. So you're getting diminishing returns, so you're not having them, right? Mean travel distance being reduced to 147. Very different cost structure, right? You're doubling the overall installation and maintenance cost. You're cutting the cost of assault from 34 million to 23 million, but your overall cost minimizing scenario has a total cost of 35 million US dollars. Okay, and here's what the curves look like, just as we thought, right? So here's the current situation, 6 million, 34 million. Here's the optimal. And I thought this was an interesting number too, because it's sort of the cost neutral solution. If you wanted to be budget neutral, you could achieve exactly the same 40 million cost, but obviously with much lower sexual assault and much higher cost. So just to show you that scenario, because I think budget neutrality seems to have a certain appeal to decision makers, roughly quadruple the number of toilets at no additional social cost. Okay? Yeah.
Those costs included.
Yeah.
So what you just public expenses?
Here's your public expenditures, the red line. Direct cost? I didn't do it. Oh boy. Direct cost. This is still the red line. I mean, not entirely. Yeah. It's not going to be a whole lot different from the red line. Yeah. I bet you're right. I bet there are a lot of, yeah, flat and red line. Yeah, I bet there's a lot of policymakers who don't want to hear about those social costs, right? Yeah. Here's what we did. First, a deterministic sensitivity analysis. So we doubled the cluster size, we quadrupled the cluster size, we doubled the social cost of assault, we quadrupled it, we halved it. We moved all these individual variables one at a time by halving them, by doubling them. And as you can see, in every scenario we did deterministically anyway, you still wanted more toilets than you currently have, 5,600. All right. To do this a little more carefully, we thought about a probabilistic. Does everyone know what a probabilistic sensitivity analysis is? Very quickly, you've got your model. For every one of the parameters in that model, you're going to assign a distribution of the input parameters. And that means that you're going to plot one data point here and present that with probability that goes there, and one data point from this distribution, and one data point from this distribution. You turn the crank, you get one answer. You save that answer. You throw away those initial realizations. You plug 3 more individual realizations. You turn the crank a second time. You do that 1,000,000 times. And you get a distribution of the outputs. That's probabilistic sensitivity analysis in 1 minute. And here's the distributions. We tried to use nice, big, broad, information-free distributions, uniform distributions on each of the data points I think I've shown you before, just to get a sense of what it would look like. Here's the sense. Here's the overall distribution of the optimal number of toilets when we ran the model 10,000 times using those probabilistic realizations. And we found that 87% of those 10,000 simulations would require you to increase the number of toilets, suggesting that the need for additional investment in sanitation persists across a wide range of our input data assumptions. Doesn't say anything about model uncertainty, but at least in terms of parameter uncertainty, we think we have a robust finding. Okay? And so to wind it up, toilets, not as boring as you think. More questions than answers. You raised a lot of them here already, but just to remind you, we really don't know whether it's opportunistic or more predatory or, sort of addiction-driven. We don't understand really how clustering works or even what the clusters are. We really don't, I don't know whether sexual assault really is a function of mean travel time or whether it actually depends on time of day. Some of those things I showed you earlier from Amnesty suggest that nobody's going to the bathroom at night. So the number of people in line currently using facilities, what route is taken, how big the walking groups are, we don't know. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff still to be done, but I think tentatively anyway, it looks like increasing the number of toilets could reduce both assaults and overall cost of society. And as you mentioned very early in the talk, we haven't been taking into account all the other benefits associated with increased sanitation, water transmission, these and other things. So in that sense, one might think of this analysis as sort of representing a lower bound on the optimal number. And with that, my time is done. What is my time done? 10? Good. Start talking. Not talk.
It seems like you have actually fairly good data. So like what you've taken a model of driven approach solution. So one thing that you might be doing is just seeing if you have a relationship toilet density, toilet prevalence across all of these small areas. Your hypothesis is that for toilets equal reduced opportunity rate, and if that's the case, you should be able to suggest it logically, adjusting for whatever things you predict.
Run an experiment?
No, just use the observational data, conduct a regression, look at whether toilet numbers are inversely associated.
So basically take the 500 plus census tracts and use those as my data.
And that would provide material support for your model. Thing. Like if you could show that in fact there is that interrelation models that have a lot more fun.
Very nice. Easy.
You have to think about the things that you have to adjust for between rurality, urban.
It's all urban, it's all the same.
Okay, well,
is that, am I right? But it's the way. You've been the way.
My folks were interns at Oregon.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing, it's kind of all urban, there's some shanty, there's some better suburban housing.
I don't mean just there, I mean throughout also.
Oh, but I don't know. I certainly don't know what.
Okay.
I only have the
Wherever you use toilet data, I mean, just run a regression.
Thank you, that's easy, and I'll do that. Yeah. What about the epidemiology? I've given this talk a couple of times and I get slammed right at the beginning by people saying, are you sure this is a problem? Are you sure this is the toilet that's doing this? Are you sure that it isn't this? I mean, I'm really worried about the empirical verification side. Is there anything?
In terms of potential data people talk to. So two comments. Okay. One is, if you have any idea who I am, that the very first decision analysis talk I heard was this medical intern, I think, at Royal Victoria Hospital, came and talked about antifungal prophylaxis and HIV.
Thank you for thinking of the doctor. Thank you.
In terms of data sources, I mean, there is this kind of crescendoing effort to do better with toilets. I mean, Gates has a whole grand toilet challenge, whatever you call it, and I don't know if they have data collection going on or any sort of.
They're looking for a better composting toilet. They want to come to the right.
One group that's also been working hard on open defecation, and so this is my second comment. This is the only economic topic I've ever seen that sort of hit me like, made a grand statement about the human condition. There's a profundity to what you're talking about that you but it's like, Ling is a rat as a cost effective.
We're running through the sewers, What's your point?
The second group of work on open defecation and just being like a human problem. It's a huge issue. India has it's called the Take the Food to the Loo campaign, and I don't know how much data.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I knew all these.
Take the Food to the Loo.
Okay, I can't remember that.
It might be worth
Thank you. I didn't, I thought I sort of knew the lay of the land in terms of organization. Thank you. Yeah, no. Everywhere. And refugee camps, India, informal settlement, Nairobi slums, yeah, so thank you.
So this is interesting to me also. My partner is originally from South Africa, and so I spent a lot of time in Khayelitsha, which is where his family lives, which is not too horribly far from Johannesburg, really. And I was there for 3 weeks. We actually had an extensive conversation about the toilets, not realizing this type of work was going on. But there's no toilet in his, there is a toilet in his yard where his family lives, but you have to walk a little bit to get there. So even for me at night, I remember saying to him, I kind of don't want to go to the washroom at night because it just feels unsafe. And he lives in a relatively nice for a township area. But I'm thinking of, in terms of collecting data, I'm not thinking, I'm qualitative. I know that at least in THETA, and I don't know what that context is like compared to Cape Town, but there are so many town halls that are held, and because toilets, you could really capitalize on the fact that toilets right now are a big issue. I'm wondering if there's a way to either within religious organizations or hosting these town halls, call people together to talk about this issue and then solicit or ask for.
So I would love it. It's not what I do. I'm a number of people. I would love it if your people would do that sort of thing. No, I would like to get your own damn grant. Yeah. But I will just say, since you mentioned it, so they are building a tremendous amount of public housing in the township, but the law of unintended consequences is kicking in. So that's the reason I'm holding this up. These little rectangles of housing that have been created, beautiful, beautiful public housing. And what they've done is they've built these lovely homes, and then there is an in-the-house toilet facility, and then there's a little shed in the corner, and then a little yard, just a little bit of green space. And they're so beautiful that the people who have been allocated them have, and there's so much more than those people have ever had before, that they have moved into the shed and are renting out the house. So they are, once again, we have doubled the number of people living there, and those people don't have a facility. So it's just, can I help you with that? I have the right answers. Anyway, sorry, you can go there, but.
So why government doesn't want to use those?
Because these are not really part of the city, the official parts of the city. These are growing and expanding like crazy, and if you put in toilets, you're gonna have to put in electricity, and you're gonna have to put in running water, and it's gonna cost a whole lot more money. These aren't very well-to-do people, so it's gonna be a terrible strain. So they are doing everything they can. They're making active steps to discourage it. But there is. I'm going to ignore that because you're not wrong.
No, but that's the point. Like you that's the rationale of your whole talk in the beginning by saying that this is larger. Like if you get a cost effectiveness of providing enhanced whatever, it'll be highly cost effective. You know, the cost effectiveness of providing better water supply will be highly cost effective. So, you know, there's likely highly cost effective by so there's a political, including politics. It's just that there's a political imperative that causes people to not count costs. So what can the modeler do to change that?
You're going to have nightmares about the two of you. No. I have no response other than to say, I would think about that.
I think there is value to quantitative analysis. I think it starts a conversation, and I also think it can highlight in numerical terms some of the inequities that are out there in terms of how we value.
I'm guessing that there's nothing you just said that Marie would disagree with. I'm just thinking.
No, I totally am. It's just that I you know, you preface your talk by saying nobody cares about this stuff. I'm just going to tell you about it.
Right.
Right. I have to spend some time thinking about that. Why is that?
I mean, the analogy in my mind is you know, a needle, you know, putting out a cost utility analysis well, needle exchange is cost saving.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, sure. Is that going to make folks in red states necessarily embrace needle exchange? No, it's not. But at least it gives one the ability to have a conversation.
Right. Well, if that's what you got, this is a real problem, and I hope to get more people from other disciplines interested. That was my first year is done. Let's call an end to this. Let's declare victory and get out of here. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. What, I get a present? Can I open it now? Seriously? Really? I'm the first one?